Hello, School Transportation Nation. Welcome to the podcast. It's brought to you by Transfinder, the leader in school bus routing software, and by IC Bus. The next generation can change everything. I'll be speaking with Antonio Civitella, President and CEO of Transfinder. We're going to be talking top transportation teams. The deadline's coming up on that. Make sure you guys sign up. If you guys think you're a top transportation team, now is the time. That's toptransportationteams.com. Check that out. Also, Ryan is speaking with Andrew Krokowski, the transportation supervisor of South Louis Central School District in New York, a top transportation team award winner from 2023. It'll be a real interesting combo, Ryan. So I'm looking forward to that. And Mr. Ryan Gray, editorial guru and content director here at STN. Always glad you're with us, big guy.
Always glad to be here, big guy.
That's
great,
right.
Great to be here with the nation as always.
That's it. Well, we got lots of headlines happening, but before we get to that, we got a quick message. Today's EV funding tip is brought to you by IC Bus. Are you ready to take advantage of another round of EPA grant funding to support your school district's sustainability goals? As your trusted advisor, IC Bus and their dealer network are ready to answer questions on all available funding sources, grants, and tax incentives, including the new $400 million Clean Heavy-Duty Vehicle Grant Program. Time is of the essence to get your application submitted by July 25th. For application assistance, visit icbus.com/clean school bus. That's icbus.com/clean school bus and start your journey for electric today. All right, Ryan, top headlines. Well, I know STN EXPO is a top headline, right? STN EXPO Indianapolis is literally like 2 weeks away. Guys, if you haven't signed up, you still can jump in last second, right? Go to stnexpo.com/east. Lock in there in Indianapolis. We're May 31st through June 4th. We've got a jam-packed schedule of activities. We've got our Transportation Director Summit, our Bus Technology Summit, got some maintenance training in there, lots of tech around green energy with our Green Bus Summit, and we have an exclusive visit to the Cummins engine plant there in Columbus, Ohio. Or I guess it's Columbus, Indiana, right?
Columbus, Indiana.
Yeah, that's right. So it'll be exciting to see everybody out there real soon at the conference. But Ryan, you got a lot of agenda items we're working on for STN EXPO in Reno as well, right? So what's happening out there for the big to-do in Reno?
Oh, a whole bunch. So we have over a dozen sessions planned. Of course, Green Bus Summit, the inspection training that you had mentioned that's also in Indy. So lots of stuff planned. We're going to be talking with the OEMs and getting their perspectives on the evolution of ADAS, those advanced driver assistance systems, as well as what does AI mean? What's that going to mean for student transportation? We're talking calculating the true cost of operating your transportation fleet or your transportation service, because certainly there's yellow buses. We're seeing a lot more other vehicles. So really diving into that and really looking at what it's costing districts to transport students in whatever mode. We have our friend Brett Brooks back. He's our law enforcement expert. He's going to be talking about incident command and what that means for school bus staff. A very important topic right there. There's some pretty bad crashes that have happened this school year. Incident command and incident management is always at the forefront of how you respond to any incident, whether it be a crash or something else. And speaking of crashes, we have a highly anticipated seminar on Friday, July 12th. Our friend Dick Fisher, of course, one of the forefathers of the school bus industry. He and Pete Baxter, the retired director of transportation for Indiana Department of Education, they are going to be looking at the liability of school bus crashes and how you respond and all the documentation that you need. So, I mean, like I said, couple dozen sessions and the trade show. Of course, we have our our trade show on that starts on Monday evening, July 15th, and continues the next day. We have great keynotes. You can learn more about those. We had Christine Cashin. You can read about her up on STN Online, as well as Keith Kruger from the Consortium of School Networking. He's going to be talking about Wi-Fi, and we were talking about that recently, Tony. There's a lot still being bandied about with that, but we know that the E-rate program is here, and he's going to be talking about that, as well as some additional technology trends that he sees emerging in the K through 12 space that could affect transportation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed your interview with Christine Cashin a few weeks ago on the podcast. She really was quite a hoot, man. Quite a funny lady. I didn't realize she was a radio personality too, right? She has that kind of voice for it. So really a great topic too. How do you stay inspired when you're so darn tired, right? It just is that invigorating your team, keeping everybody at high energy, performing at a high level, and bringing humor into that, and bringing kind of a fun kind of engagement with your team. So I think we all get distracted with the function of our job, but we got to have some fun too, Ryan. I think people always have fun at STN Expo. We know that there's lots of fun to be had, but there's lots of learning and networking to be had too. So really exciting stuff. You guys go to stnexpo.com/west. Again, that's July 12th through the 17th out in Reno, Nevada. We still have our early bird special going through June the 7th to save $100 off your early bird registration. So do not wait. We are selling out the hotel fast. So do not sit on that. Jump on it. Go get approval from your administrators, your team. Definitely be there. We had over 800 attendees last year and over 600 exhibiting staff. So it's 1,400 people. It was a monster of a show. We've got all the latest technology trends. I know some OEMs are launching new vehicles, always new products to see, always a great place to get together and meet with all your vendor partners in one concentrated location. So a really good use of time when you come out to STN Expo this summer. So guys, can't wait to see you. Lots of fun happening. So Ryan, let's talk about some top headlines. I know New York State, and this has been a topic of for a while, which is the bus camera laws. And now I think that's specifically talking about illegal passing cameras, correct?
Stop arm cameras, correct. So there was evidently a loophole in the New York State stop arm camera law. And it was basically highlighted. There was a motorist who got a ticket for failing to stop for the school bus. And he basically appealed that. And what he uncovered was that the way that the law was written, the footage did not show proof that it was a school bus. So you think, okay, it's on the school bus. What kind of proof do you need? And just the way that the footage, what it captured or didn't capture. So he was able to exploit that. And it went all the way up to the state Supreme Court. So, and the state Supreme Court ruled, hey, yeah, this needs to be reversed. So in the New York State budget that was approved last month, they got a line item there to basically close that loophole, so that it states effective immediately, that stop arm cameras on school buses include a quote unquote rebuttable presumption that the vehicle being passed is a school bus and meets all requirements of being such a vehicle. So, again, we've talked about how a lot of the different laws from state by state, they have a slightly different requirements. Some states require that the motorist actually be on camera. Others just require that the license plate. So, there's a lot of different aspects to this, but I had never seen one where you actually had to prove that the camera was on a school bus. So it just goes to show you the importance of language, especially when it comes to law.
Yeah. Let's also talk about Ohio, Ryan. I know Governor Mike DeWine had put together a safety working group, and they had laid out recommendations based on a fatal crash where there was an ejection of a student. And, there was a lot of discussion about grant money and how they were going to deploy capital based on those numerous safety recommendations. And I guess there's been more updates on that story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, so those 17 recommendations that came out in January, or believe it might have even been the beginning of February, they was all called because of that ejection that you mentioned, Tony. And speaking of which, the motorist who was driving a van who veered into the school bus's lane, the oncoming van, that gentleman was actually convicted a couple weeks ago. So, that is one development in this. But certainly, as you mentioned, there was a life lost, and that was always tragic. But one of those recommendations, it did not recommend seatbelts. I know a lot of people were hoping for that. A lot of other people are breathing a sigh of relief. But one of the recommendations that did come out was that the state develop a grant program to help school districts who want to install seatbelts, lap shoulder belts. So one of the big advocates there, the School Bus Safety Alliance, that's been around since 2016. And Rudy Breglia, he's the founder of that. He's a PhD toxicologist by trade. He's really been passionate about getting seatbelts, lap shoulder seatbelts in school buses. He attended every single working group. Well, he's basically developed a grant, a $15,000 grant for Lorain County, which is in Ohio. I believe it's close to the Cleveland area. He's actually Rudy has been instrumental in getting several counties or cities to pass an ordinance or a recommendation that school buses have seatbelts. He did that with Lorain County in front of the Lorain County Commission. They approved that resolution 24-167. It establishes a seatbelt program for its 16 school districts. And then Rudy did have this $15,000 grant that he said he's hoping that the state will look at and use that at least as some fodder for when they're developing the grant. Now, this was a recommendation. They don't necessarily have to, but the writing is on the wall there that there is that push from certain people to get seatbelts into to Ohio school buses. And interestingly enough, when that working group came out, Tony, there was a stat that I think it said like 90% of the school districts in Ohio have at least one bus with seatbelts. And that was, I'm not sure where they got that stat from, but as Rudy has pointed out a number of times, not accurate. What they were talking about was like your integrated child seats or the CSRS for the younger kids, pre-K, preschool, which we know was an issue with that recent Texas crash, another rollover. That was pre-K kids, and they didn't have those. And we've written extensively about that and where Hayes CISD is going with its seatbelts. Now, of course, the lap shoulder belts in Texas are required by law. Ohio does not have that law. There is a bill currently that trying to do that, but a number of the folks that we've talked to across the industry in Indiana, speaking of STN EXPO Indy, comes to mind. I was out there, probably 6 or 7, 8 years ago, and actually visited several school districts and spoke with their state director, Mike LaRocco. And their perspective, their approach in Indiana is they don't want to legislate it, but they're really utilizing an education campaign, and one that's really been taken up by Emmy, the company that owns Safeguard, because Safeguard's right there in the Indianapolis area. And a lot of the school districts, the take rate of just the voluntary adoption has really been significant there. Because, if you look at a lot of the push for seatbelts, a lot of it, usually starts with, we're going to legislate it. And you look at how the different associations have taken it, and definitely NASDIPS is the one that really is championing seatbelts. But they point out, if the school districts can pay for it, if they can get the funding and it makes sense for their operation. And that's really where Indiana comes down in this argument, or in this great debate. So certainly it will be interesting to see what happens with Ohio, as well as a lot of states. I mean, we know we have I believe it's like 6 or 7 states that mandate the lap shoulder belts. And from what I've gathered, it's been pretty successful. But the success always hinges on, are the students going to wear them? And, having a requirement at the district level that holds those kids accountable, holds the parents accountable if they don't wear it. And that's really where we've seen the successes come through.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Ryan. I guess safety is top of mind for many districts out there, and having some grant money to implement any safety technology is, I'm sure, appreciated, however large or small. It gives the districts an opportunity to invest and make a difference in that safety element, and that's so important in our industry. So, 100% agree. It's good stuff. I know other top headlines we're seeing from around the industry. A little bit of movement. Kevin Bankston, the president of Thomas Built Buses, is now the president and CEO of Freightliner Custom Chassis, which they call FCCC. So a move there. So he's doing a dual role. And then we also saw some earnings come out. Bluebird had another earnings smasher. Their stock price was up to record highs, and they saw record EBITDA earnings. Lots of electric school buses in that earnings report, Ryan. It was quite interesting to see the momentum. They're obviously capitalizing on all that clean school bus money and all the programs that are out there in the industry, but definitely big time stuff. $2 billion in revenues. That is a big adjustment on their outlook. So definitely a jump there from Bluebird. Exciting momentum for that company going in. We also saw earnings from Lion. They had announced reported earnings in the first quarter, and the earnings were okay, right? The stock price kind of was flat. They've seen a decrease in vehicle deliveries. They did 196 vehicles total, which, they have that really large plant, Ryan, out in Illinois. And I'm not sure if it's quite moving enough vehicles quite yet. I know they're putting a big jump on their trucking division, which that's going to push out more trucks. So there's this kind of fine line to walk, I think, whenever you're a fledgling company and you're trying to push through more inventory, but obviously lots of competition in the world of electric school buses as of late.
Exactly. Yeah. With Bluebird, you had mentioned the EBITDA, the adjusted EBITDA, which is short for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It's really the litmus test for the financial operating performance of a company, how well they're truly doing when you kind of, get past, what they're saying with revenue, because as there's operating costs. And as you mentioned with Lion, Lion has their new Lion D coming out. They have their Lion 5 bus. They have their Lion battery packs as well. So they attributed the gross loss there that fell about, from 11.1 million to 8.9 million. And they like, as you mentioned, they attributed that to increased manufacturing costs and the ramp up of those new products. But with Bluebird, you mentioned that huge leap, and it was interesting because back to that adjusted EBITDA, it was an all-time second quarter record of 46 million, reflecting a 13% margin, a $25 million increase over last year. So certainly, yes, Clean School Bus program is really pushing this. And I know that we have an article coming out next month in a couple of weeks where we're looking a lot at electric school bus implementation. And I know that IC, Bluebird's competitor, is talking about all the electric buses that they have moved, and they're saying, that has been because of Clean School Bus. And Clean School Bus has paid for all of those electric buses so far. So as we've talked about, Tony, though, here we are midway almost through 2024. We have another 2.5 years of Clean School Bus program. What's going to happen after that? Likely we're not going to see any more big federal programs that are pushing a lot of money, but who knows? We never say never, right? We know that the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act, that is still ongoing. Now, how that goes forward, past another 5 years or so. We'll have to see. Hearing that some of the interest in that is starting to wane in Congress of continuing to fund that, but it still is out there. In fact, there was they opened up a grant opportunity for tribal recently, so that money is still available. Folks, get it while it's hot, because that's really what's keeping electric buses floating right now. And again, the whole intent here is to get that seed money, and all the powers that be are just hoping that that will be a stopgap, because we still see that the electric buses are extremely expensive, 2.5, 3 times, maybe more than what you would pay for a comparable diesel. But those diesel buses are getting expensive, have gotten more expensive, and will continue to with the different regulations we see from EPA and CARB. So buses are just getting more expensive, Tony. Everything's getting more expensive. So get those grant funds while you can.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting last week when you were interviewing NYSERDA out in New York. They were talking about their plan to outfit 45,000 school buses and make them electric. And, $500 million is like a drop in the bucket with what they were looking to do. And, what got me thinking about it was they were pretty adamant that the price of electric vehicles was going to go down, but it's not necessarily true. I think where you pointed out to them as, look, the price of electric isn't going down. The price of diesel is going up. And, I think cost parity might be a lot closer, but it's on an uptrend upward. And they're not accounting for the cost of diesel going up significantly, which might actually push more people into electric if they see the total cost of ownership being more advantageous, right? It just comes down to, what does it pencil out to be? What's the cost of infrastructure, maintenance? And then, this is the CapEx versus OpEx model. And that's the tough part about how school districts buy school buses. It's very CapEx heavy, where OpEx is like my fuel and all these other things. But if you're going to scrape a fuel budget, it's hard to justify, hey, what's my fuel budget look like for the next 10 years? And can I get that all up front to go buy electric buses? School districts have an issue with that. I think that's going to be a hard sell, Ryan.
It will be. And I think, we have an article coming out in a couple of weeks in June as well that looks at the cost of electric school buses, a couple actually. But one of the article that I'm thinking of primarily is it's a thought leader piece by our friend Ewan Pritchard. He's an electric vehicle consultant and goes way back to the hybrid days. He worked on the hybrid school bus project out there in North Carolina. And he talks about, the electrification as a service, charging as a service. Those programs are really becoming more and more popular, and there's for a reason, because it's this brand new contracting model that we're seeing. That's just 5 years ago, if you said electrification as a service, you'd be like, what? And it's this new electrification model where and contracting model where essentially traditionally, when you talk contracting, you hire a school bus contractor, and they can come in and either run the entire operation or give you kind of a la carte services. And similarly now with electrification of the buses, because they're so expensive, but then also too the infrastructure and all the charging that has to go into it, and then you add in elements like the Inflation Reduction Act tax incentives. I mean, that's brand new tax code essentially that's now available for the first time to public school districts. School districts never before could get those tax incentives or some of those tax incentives. So now they can. I was talking with a student transporter just the other day from Jackson, Mississippi, and he was talking about how he really had to do a deep dive and to really understand. And he said that actually that's emerging as even more difficult to wrap your head around than the infrastructure. And everyone's been talking about infrastructure. So it's, electrification has really opened up Pandora's box of not only what's possible, but what school districts need to educate themselves on so that they can make informed decisions, the best decisions for themselves, so that they can look at that total life cycle, those total costs, and be able to pencil that stuff out so it does, in the end of the day, operate more efficiently than diesel. And we're starting to see those numbers that, basically a 2-to-1 savings from operating operating per mile. When you're going from diesel to electric. So certainly a lot there to chew on, and that's why we continue to push out these articles and have sessions at events like STN EXPO.
Great headlines, Ryan. Thanks for that. All right, I'm talking with Antonio Civitella, President CEO of Transfinder. Hello, School Transportation Nation. Good morning to you wherever you're at, or good afternoon. I want to make sure and let you know we have a really important guest today with us. We just wrapped up with his ACS conference, which is the basically the client summit for Transfinder. We have with us Antonio Civitella, President and CEO today. Tony, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, everybody. So exciting. It's getting almost summer here. Get in there.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I know you just wrapped up your ACS conference and it was a packed house, record attendance. You were hyping up everybody about all the new things coming out, and you were hyping everyone up about top transportation teams, making sure everybody knew that this was an amazing opportunity to get their teams involved, because all these leaders at your ACS conference, you've got a captive audience. So you're like, all right, everybody, now's the time. You can't procrastinate anymore. We got to get on it. This is a really important message. What was that reaction from your audience, Tony?
I mean, we definitely got a big bump. Of course, we're trying to get more. We extended the enrollment due date for an extra 2 weeks. Let's face it, everybody's super busy. Maybe it's not top of mind, and we're just trying to make it top of mind. We got a huge bump during our annual client summit, which was so awesome. We had so many great feedback from our clients, but there's just so much good news around top transportation teams. We look back on the winners from last year. They're clearly have used the award to help them recruit, and I think you're going to have some other guests talk about how they're full. They actually have no problem filling empty slots, and really the driver shortage, they don't have any. They're using the Top Transportation Teams Award to help them recruit. And we always say this: people want to work for winning companies, winning teams, and that's really it. So definitely, I think we have one more week of enrollment, and let's get more people in there. And of course, we'd like to get more contractors too, Tony. We want to emphasize that it's not just school districts, but let's get some of the private companies involved too, those contractors. So I really like to encourage, maybe this year we get a winner that's a contractor. Who knows, right?
Absolutely. So guys, Tony's talking about, if you haven't heard about top transportation teams, maybe there's an opportunity you haven't, you would go to toptransportationteams.com, and that's where you can apply as well to be a top transportation team and be part of this engagement. And it's really exciting because this is something we do at STN EXPO in partnership with Transfinder. It's on the main stage of STN EXPO. We recognize and honor the top transportation teams. Your team basically votes, and this is an opportunity for you to kind of step forward and really look internally and say, what are we doing right? And we're never doing everything perfect, but what does your team think? And it's anonymous, right, Tony?
Absolutely. It's anonymous. I think there's over 50 specific questions that's rating. And so really your team's going to rate the team, and really there's a bunch of questions about leadership and the team, the morale, and all of those things. And so the point is, you want to hear feedback, and it's anonymous. Of course, the employees that fill out these forms you're not going to know who they are, but you get a good sense of what's going on. You get a good sense of what are they saying, and who knows, maybe you'll use some of this data to improve some of your operations. Maybe there's some low-hanging fruit. I was talking about something that's really easy that you and the team could get together saying, all right, well, here's the theme that we're getting from our employees. Can we make those changes? Hey, I'm sure you're going to get some feedback saying, we need to get pay raises. Of course you're going to get that, right? And no matter what industry, there's always going to be somebody saying, I just had more money in my pocket, I will do a lot more. Of course. But that's not the thing you're looking for. You're looking for those specific things about, hey, I got tons of ideas, but no one's listening. I got to remind everybody. And by the way, Tony, I have to remind myself and really the executive team at Transfinder, because perception is reality, which means we think there's a certain reality, but it's how people see it. And so it's our job to make sure that perception and reality are the same thing. So, and it's work. It really is. It's not just snap the finger and all of a sudden now you have a best team in the nation. It's constant work. And we do that here at Transfinder. We apply for multiple awards, a best place to work. It's one of those awards that means a lot to me, because it's not what I think about my company. It's what employees at Transfinder feel they work at Transfinder. So we took this same concept a year ago and we did it with the school transportation industry. We had so much fun at STN last summer. We had 6 winners, and who knows? Maybe it'll be 6 again this year. Again, it's all based on the numbers that come in. So get going. We want to have a record-breaking number of enrollments, and of course, number of people that actually submitted their questions. So looking forward to that, Tony.
Yeah, and I mean, the root of what you're describing is employee feedback. So it's really understanding, is the organization as healthy as you think it is, right? And it's always good to get feedback from your team to understand, because sometimes you can't see the forest from the trees. You're just going through the motions of the function of your job. And it's like taking a step back and saying, hey, employee, how's it going? Like, how are you doing? It was an interesting thing. I was scrolling social media and it talked about the highest performing employee, and they left the company, and nobody understood why the highest performing employee left the company. And so someone finally asked this employee, you're the highest producing employee at our company. Why did you leave? And this is why I was really hoping that you would hire more resources so I could do my job better, but no one ever hired anyone else. I just kept doing more and working more hours, and no one helped hire any more support for me. So I'm leaving. If anyone would have known to ask that question or given that person an opportunity or an open space, they would have kept their absolute best employee. So if you guys think you have perfect organization, it's always good to gut check yourself and ask those employees or give them an open space to ask that question.
Perfect. Oh, Tony, people want to feel that their contributions to the organization have some sort of impact. They want to be recognized. I don't think we need to just treat employees like kids. Oh, here's some ice cream if you eat your vegetables. I don't think you need to go that direction. But I believe that your performance is going to be increased from everyone. It's just really their engagement will be much higher if you get their feedback. And again, don't just go through the motion. Yeah, sure, here's the suggestion box. Don't ask people what they think if you're not willing to do anything about it. And you can't do it all, but you got to take a couple things. Tony, there'll always be some low-hanging fruit that you can implement in a short time frame and get a reward. And actually let everyone know, hey, by the way, we're doing this because of the feedback. Don't make it sound like I always knew about this and today we just woke up and doing this. No, don't make it sound like you're a manager that has their head in the sand. Give them kudos. Hey, we're doing this because all of you said it's important to you. Why not? Why not? So, Tony, I'm like I said, it's how we get our employees engaged, the executive teams and managers communicate. And again, anonymous feedback goes a long way. It really does.
So the process here, Tony, is I go to toptransportationteams.com. I sign up my transportation department. Then I get an email from Transfinder basically asking for an email list of my employees. Then an email will go out asking those team members to please respond, that it would be anonymous, and then that data is analyzed, and then the winners are basically selected. Is that correct?
It's really that simple. There's a form that you can click on right on toptransportationteams.com. It's in front of me right now. You have the organization name, the address, city, state, website, your name, your last name, your title, your email. And by the way, we want you to enter more than once because sometimes we spell things incorrectly when you're going really fast. A phone number. Then here's the cool things. We've even provided you a sample Excel file that has just really the email address format. We don't need all the information. Tony, please do not upload your mother's maiden name in your first car in high school. We don't need that. We just need email address. We don't even need names, but all of them. If you say you have 200 employees in your transportation department, we want 200 emails. Yes, we've definitely had some people upload not an Excel spreadsheet, but a photo of their transportation department. It's cute. I love it. But that's not going to work if we're going to send out surveys to those people. So just read the instructions. It's not that hard. And again, why did we extend it is because we got some feedback saying, I don't have a list of emails available at my fingertip. So I have to get the IT involved. Then just tell the IT, hey, I need a list of email addresses in an Excel spreadsheet so that way I could upload for this Top Transportation Teams award. And that's it. Tony, that's really the hard part. Then we'll do the rest. There's really no rules. The rules for when we apply for these type of awards, there's a lot of rules in there, and specifically employees are asked, hey, were you influenced by your manager to score high in this survey? We don't have those kind of questions. So guess what? Let your employees know, hey, we're trying to win this Top Transportation Teams Award, and there's all these great reason. If we win, we'll be able to better recruit, get you more help on a daily basis. Let them know that's important. Score high. Be honest. But if you could, feel good. Maybe you want to get a pizza party going. I don't know. At this moment, there's no question in a survey saying, hey, were you influenced by the department to respond in a positive manner? We don't ask that. So go and do it. Get the team excited and upload that file. I'm telling you, it is going to change the department's point of view. I know it will. It does for Transfinder. And I know the winners from last year, wow. I still hear from them.
Transformation.
By the way, all of them are not our clients. Well, you know that. I don't want you to think, oh, sure, you're just giving awards to Transfinder clients. No, we're not. It was actually split right down in half. 3 were Transfinder clients and 3 were not. They actually had other products. So I just want to make that clear to everyone. It's just numbers. We just add up the numbers and whoever wins, wins. That's it.
Guys, this is a transformational opportunity for your transportation department. So please take advantage. TopTransportationTeams.com. Transfinder will take care of the rest once you get your information loaded in. And then you can come to STN EXPO. July 15th on the main stage, we'll be announcing the winners. It was the most attended session at STN EXPO last year of all the sessions we do, keynotes, everything. Top Transportation Teams was number 1. So that's got to give you a feel that people really are curious what makes a top transportation team. And I have to say, the panelists that you had last year, stellar conversation. The session lived up to the hype. It was really, really good. And we don't know exactly who it's going to be, right? You got to go through the process and then the winners are announced. And it's a surprise to them too. People were shocked. They couldn't believe that they were number 1, right? I saw the people's faces, the surprise, the shock, they were crying. It meant so much to them. It was very emotional because, a lot of you out there, you put your heart and soul into transportation, and it feels amazing to be recognized by your peers and your staff that you're doing a great job. So this is your opportunity. Tony, again, toptransportationteams.com. What is our deadline to cut off?
The cutoff is the end of May, so get this going out there. Actually, I'm sorry, the cutoff for the file and for enrollment is the 17th, which is Friday, May 17th. And then we're given about a couple weeks after that for the surveys to be completed. And we'll be announcing, we'll be notifying the winners in June. Of course, public announcement during the STN conference in July, Monday, July 15th. So we are looking forward to another successful event. And yeah, we were super proud to see so many people at that session. Tony, it was like 450, or I mean, it was just a massive number of people. I think we ran out of food too. So let's make sure we don't run out.
Yeah, we're ordering more food this year for sure. That's definitely. Well, Tony, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, remember toptransportationteams.com. Sign up today. Don't miss that deadline. May 17th is the cutoff. So don't wait any longer. Jump on that. We appreciate you, Nation. Tony, thank you for coming on and supporting this really important award.
Thank you for having me. See you next month.
All right, coming up next, Ryan is talking with Andrew from South Lewis Central School District in New York.
All right, Nation, let's welcome to the stage this week's guest, Andrew Krokowski, the Transportation Supervisor for South Lewis Central School District in Turin, New York. Andrew, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So you are one of the reigning 2023 top team winners awarded by Transfinder last year at the STN EXPO Reno. Was that your first opportunity to come out to Reno, or at least to the STN EXPO?
Yeah, definitely was. It was actually my first expo or trade show in the school transportation industry ever. So it was.
Ever? Wow, yeah. We're honored, even on the local level, huh?
Even on the local.
Okay, so. Before we jump in, because we obviously want to know more about who Andrew Krokowski is and what makes you tick and how you got involved in the transportation industry. But just some quick geography for the nation out there. South Lewis, Turin, New York, pretty rural. It's about 80 miles or so northeast of Syracuse, New York?
That'd be correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I was noticing, I was on your website earlier, 1,000 students that are transported a day, basically 1,000 students transported morning and afternoon, correct?
Correct, yep.
But what really struck me was a large service area, 365 square miles?
That is correct.
I understand it's the fourth largest in the state?
Fourth largest geographic district in the state. Yeah, it's a very vast area, lots of hills, lots of snow.
Lots of snow, yes. Hopefully this time of year you're well into spring, but I know sometimes the weather hangs on a little bit. So let's talk about you. So Andrew Krokowski, how long have you been the transportation supervisor there in South Lewis?
I'm coming up on just finishing my 5th year as transportation supervisor.
Okay.
I started in April of 2019. And then before that, I worked for the local BOCES, which is like the career and technical school that's in the state of New York. I worked for them for 3 years as what's called a job skill instructor. So my primary task there was to train drivers, prospective drivers for school buses. And I also worked on a drug and alcohol testing program when I was there. So I did that for 3 years. And prior to that, I was a school bus driver right here back home in South Lewis.
Okay. So how long were you a school bus driver for?
I started in 2013 as a school bus driver. So I did a 3-year stint and then went to BOCES and did a 3-year stint. And now I think I found my forever home.
Okay, great. So how did that all transpire? How did you, so obviously you were in transportation for a while. So you what's now about 11 years or so that you've been in the industry. But was it something that you wanted to become a transportation supervisor? Was that your pathway going forward?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it really wasn't. I was at a point in my life in 2013 where I really needed a job. And South Lewis was the school that I went to when I was a student. So still being in the local area, they were hiring for a transportation attendant at the time. So I took the job just to get my feet wet a little bit. And for lack of better terms, I was bit by the yellow bug, and it's still biting.
Got the yellow blood still pulsing through your veins. Yeah, great. Yeah. Now with the top team recognition that you were chosen for, so that was a nomination process nationwide that Transfinder did. Large, small, rural, urban. school districts, and you were one of 6 winners, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about your organization. How many drivers do you have? I think 17 routes, give or take.
19 total.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Right on. So you're probably having somewhere between 15 and 20 drivers, depending on your staffing levels. Have to ask you. Of course, the national driver shortage continues to be a thing. I don't think we're ever going to be rid of it in the industry. I've been doing this for 20 years, and there's always been a driver shortage. People have been talking about. Obviously, it's gotten worse after COVID. Where are you guys right now in your staffing levels?
So we are very unique in that sense. We may only have 19 AM and PM routes. Obviously, we have a handful of middle of the day routes. But here's where we're unique. We actually have 31 drivers on staff.
Ooh.
We run a program here called our floating program. And what those drivers are is when we post for a job, we don't look for somebody that's certified, that's ready to license and ready to go. We take the average person that may be interested in it and we put them into our training program. So while we're using that person and we're training them to become a bus driver, we use them as a transportation attendant in the meantime. So therefore, even during training, they're not technically full-time employees, but they're getting full-time hours. So that's one of the things that we built into the program. And on the tail end of that, we hire those drivers to be our floating drivers, our standby drivers, so we can cover as many sports trips as possible. We can cover more than just your average call-ins per day. Essentially, we can basically double cover ourselves if we need to. And that's something that we really learned during COVID was we have to make sure we have staff ready to go all the time, and especially at a moment's notice. So we really increased and improved the program. When I first started here, there was 19 drivers at that point in time. So we added on the additional 10 or 11 people just to make sure our wheels continue to turn and our kids get to schools and they get to go to all the opportunities that they can go to. We don't want to be the fault for that.
So yeah, so with when you had only 19 drivers, obviously very little wiggle room if someone called in sick or multiple people called in sick, or of course the dreaded retirement if you had a driver or two that all of a sudden told you around this time, hey, I'm not going to be back next year, and you're like, oh no. But now you have this stable really of drivers at the ready, and working and involved. So they're not. I wouldn't even call them substitute drivers.
No, they're full time. They show up to work whether they have to go on a run or not. Full time benefits just like a regular driver gets.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're not driving, if we have extra people on any given day, we put them out where we need some assistance with a behavioral challenge that's happening on a bus. Or if one floating driver is driving a route that they may not be overly familiar with, we put another one out with them just to be a second set of eyes, help with directions and all that stuff. We don't have that luxury too much of doubling them up just because of the nature of the beast. But when we do have that luxury, we make sure we utilize it to the fullest.
Gotcha. So you mentioned bus attendants. So, and you said you can't have every single person out there doubling up on the routes, but you can still have a significant number of bus attendants on some of your routes. I'm curious, something that we are following news-wise at STN is bus aides or monitors or attendants. And if you go back in the industry 30, 40 years ago, it was a lot more common to see bus attendants on most routes. Mm-hmm. Then with, of course, budget cuts, folks look at it and say, well, where do we have to have these? And often that would fall to when a kid on their IEP, they needed an attendant based upon their condition. Starting to sense a little bit recently of more districts going back to having more attendants on routes, regardless of if it's general ed or quote unquote special ed. Curious, you being a former attendant, it sounds again that you guys have a lot of attendants on a lot of your routes. What's your perspective on a lot of the behavior that we're seeing from students, whether they have IEPs or not. There's a lot of more violence that we've been hearing and seeing in some of the headlines, especially against drivers, parents. Do you guys deal with anything like that at South Louis?
Overall, I wouldn't say that we deal with overly violent situations, but more safety concern distractions that we're dealing with, loud kids, throwing stuff, all the typical kid stuff that you hear about. That I've definitely seen an uptick in more behaviors like that. But we're in a good position, because we have those extra people. We can put them out to. We don't just have them go out there and sit there and watch the kid. We actually have them sit down and educate them about what they should be doing and how they should be behaving on the bus. So we use it as a learning experience. So while we see an uptick, we also see a decrease in severity at the same time because we constantly have eyes on.
And that comes back to your culture. I mean, it's kind of like a cyclical pattern of if you have the right culture within your organization on the work end, that translates
Absolutely
to the route to the kids, and then it comes back to you with improved behavior. And obviously it helps culture when employees know that you have their backs.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about the have their backs thing, but one thing that I feel is important to note when you're talking about culture and you talk about the unique program that we have here, drivers don't feel that they're alone in the sense of, I'm not saying no support. I'm saying that if they need help, it's available. We're not so strapped for staff that we can't do anything for them. So that piece of this alone has really improved morale, has improved our culture, just because they constantly feel like somebody's there for them. But having your employees' backs is a huge aspect to any organization, in my opinion. But especially when you're talking about staff that you desperately need, you really want to protect them, because without them, you're going to end up in a failure. And I commonly will go to bat for my employees night or day. I do it in front of them. I'm very transparent with my staff, where I tell them exactly what they did or didn't do, or what the other person said or didn't say, because I want them to know that even though I'm sitting in my office and my door may be closed, it's not an attempt to hide any information from them. And that really overall, I think, has opened a door for us where employees feel like they're respected, valued. They know that nobody's out to get them. And that's a huge piece of the pie when you look at the overall picture of it.
And I've talked with a lot of folks over the years, regarding the driver or staff shortage, because we're seeing obviously similar numbers in the maintenance bays, where school districts are clamoring for more technicians, routers, dispatchers. I don't know how many transportation supervisors and directors I've spoken to who say, "Oh yeah, you're looking at the dispatcher."
Mm-hmm.
I'm that person too, or my secretary is, or the router does that as well, or whatnot. But a lot of folks have always talked about pay, and obviously, school bus drivers. You don't become a school bus driver to become rich, at least monetarily. Maybe you can become rich in a lot of other ways. But I'm curious, as I've spoken with a lot of folks who do have culture in their departments, and they've made great strides similar to you, and they say, hey, money's not everything. I mean, money does. We all need money, but I'm kind of interested in how you guys address, because you said all of your drivers, they're full time,
right?
So they're getting benefits too.
They have full benefits, health insurance, retirement, any benefit that you can think of for a school bus driver, they've got. As far as pay goes, our pay scale is actually one of the highest in the areas. We pay $33.10 an hour. So
wow.
we keep that up there for them, and that's where I think I kind of bring a unique perspective to the table. Being so young when I started in the industry, you commonly hear about the retired folks that are driving buses because they're the only ones that more or less can afford it financially, right? They're getting their pension, they're getting some other type of income. I really wanted to work on, and we're starting to see that, work on the change though of attracting the younger generation into the bus driving, because not that anything's wrong with the older folks that are driving, but there is a deadline on them in the sense of they're going to want to retire soon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get somebody interested in the industry that's in their 20s or 30s, you hope that you have that commitment for a long term, and therefore you're better. Your team is going to be better because you're not constantly a revolving door.
I want to get back to that. You said deadline, and there's a deadline coming up that I want to talk about. And I know you probably know where I'm going to go with this. But first, you said, so $33 an hour. Is that to start, or is that?
That's base wage, yes.
Wow. And how did you get the school board what's your secret sauce there to get your school board to sign off on that?
So again, not to keep saying that we're unique, but it was a unique position we were in. We currently are on a single campus now. That campus opened in the 21-22 school year. So prior to that, we had 2 additional elementary buildings at opposite ends of our district. So that the board and the union was involved for the drivers. They got together. We did a route study where we saw that we're going to gain an efficiency on the routes at about 33%. We're going to lose 33% of time on the road just by coming to a single campus, having a single run. So the group that was negotiating all this came to a collective agreement that, you're going to lose 33%. We feel comfortable giving all the drivers 25% raise the first year the school's open to counteract the loss in wages, essentially. And so that just bumped us up into where we are. But there's a story there. It's not for lack of drivers. It's not for lack of anything. It was other than our current staff was about to lose a good chunk of change, and we wanted to make sure they felt appreciated and not get the penalty of that.
Mm-hmm. So I feel that after this podcast comes out, you're going to get about 150 emails with people sending their resumes to become a driver. But so back to the deadline, electric school buses.
Sure.
So you are a rural school district, hilly. You're kind of like the poster child for the district that's like, electric school buses that's going to be difficult for us to implement and cost that thing out. Mm-hmm. Tell me where you guys stand right now with electric school buses. You have about, give or take 2.5 years before new purchases. And I know that there's some caveats there and there's some extensions available, especially to rural school districts, but essentially 2.5 years before the new purchases need to be all electric.
Yeah, that's definitely a unique challenge that we're going to experience here very soon. And you're exactly right. Our terrain is everything anti-electric in the sense of very large hills. But when you couple that with very cold weather and lack of infrastructure, you really have the perfect storm starting to brew. It's going to be a challenge for us to switch to a fully electric fleet. We do have a handful of runs that have short mileage that could accommodate that. But as far as the overall change in our entire fleet over to electric, we're going to have some challenges on our hand with the way technology is today. Now, with that being said, we do have 2.5 years before we have to officially make that transition. And one could hope that technology starts to catch up a little bit more with where we need it to be. Obviously we're taking the steps now that we need to take to safeguard us in the sense of we don't want to be trying to do all this work at the very last minute. So we're working on our roadmap now. We're working on getting the infrastructure into our building now. We're in communication with our power company to make sure that can all be accommodated. But it is a very difficult challenge when you look at our area.
Mm-hmm. And how many buses are in your fleet total?
We have 24 full-size 66 passenger buses.
Okay. And then about like 17 or 18 of those are en route?
19 would be on routes all the time.
Okay. So then the rest would be spares or first trips, sports trips. And
yes. Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of that, because I was going to ask you, 2.5 years, that's about as much time as you need to get infrastructure set up. So it's good that you guys are going through that now. But I'm curious, paying for it? I know that there's a lot of money in New York, a lot of grant money, and you guys don't have any electric yet, right? You're
Correct.
full diesel? Is that what you?
Full diesel.
Running? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'm sure you're probably educating yourself on all the grants, the Clean School Bus program, everything.
Yeah, and we're New York school districts. Some of the districts are listed as high priority, which ours luckily is a high priority. So we would fit the qualifications to apply for that money, and it's certainly a stream that we'll tap into when it's appropriate. Right now, we just want to make sure that we're surviving tomorrow, and we'll move forward from there as we need to.
Lot there. And kind of staying on the technology track, in terms of culture, curious technology wise, how that is helping your culture, because you were talking about getting people's backs, right? You're getting your drivers' backs, your staff's backs. A lot of this technology now, there's so much more available to the drivers to help them do their jobs. And probably when you started driving in 2013, how has that helped shift things?
So we have Tyler Drive, which is the tablets similar to Transfinder's Feature 2, but we have Tyler Drive. We do use those to help the drivers out, especially our floating staff, get to where they need to go. We also have GPS in all of our buses, which is a big tool that we use to say when a parent calls and says the bus didn't stop, we can go back and track that. We can see that. That's one more way that we can reinforce to our staff that we really have your back, because we're going to go back and look. And that also promotes honesty from them, because they know that we're going to catch it eventually. But it's not any tool, and I express this very greatly, and I express this frequently to my staff. Any piece of technology we have in place, whether it be a camera system, the GPS system, whatever it may be, we're not using that in a sense of trying to catch somebody doing something wrong. We use those as a form of protection for the driver in many different ways. And I think any department that has a bunch of technology like that needs to make sure that their staff understands it's not there to spy on them.
And I know that in the article that we had on the top team winners last summer, you had mentioned that sometimes you strike out. You think you're looking at a challenge and you decide to try some new technology. It doesn't always work out, and being nimble and being able to maneuver that. And I cannot let you go without asking you. You had also mentioned in that article that you, as a leader, you need to be prepared and ready and to accept constructive criticism. So, have to ask you, Andrew, give me an example of some constructive criticism that you've received as a transportation supervisor, and how you acted on it.
Yeah, I think back to when I, first came back to South Louis in this position now. One of the things that I attempted to change was how the drivers roster their trips, how they're up for it. And in doing so, I ended up creating a lot more problems that were not thought of, just because I was quick to make the change, not think things through very clearly, or have adequate time to do that. So when you make those kind of changes, whether it be big, small, doesn't matter what kind of change it is, you have to be understanding that everybody doesn't like change, and they may like change, but they may also like the system that's currently in place for whatever reason. And you have to respect that. So what I learned from that is, prior to making any change, don't do it as a surprise. Don't do it as a vindictive motion, if you will. Educate your staff about why you need to make the change, why we need to move to something else or change something, and make sure they fully understand why you're doing it before you do it. Make sure they're bought into it. That's something that I feel like has given me great success over the years with that mindset, because if they're not going to buy into it, you're lost. That battle's long gone. So educate, and then make the change. And also allow for your staff to provide feedback and input about, hey, can we make this better? Or would it be better if we did this? And allow for that feedback instead of saying it's my way or the highway.
Sure, that why. That's always extremely important. Well, Andrew, You got a great operation up there at South Lewis. Thanks so much for letting us take a peek behind the curtain and understanding how you run that effective and sounds a very happy organization up there. So, well, and we'll have to get you back out to Reno. I know you said that STN Expo Reno was your first trade show and conference, I believe. So we'll have to get you back out there.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Andrew. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Special thanks to Ryan Gray, Antonio Civitella, Andrew Krokowski. Appreciate you all coming on, sharing your thoughts. Also, special thanks to our sponsors this week, Transfinder and IC Bus. Guys, visit stnonline.com for all the latest news and analysis on the school transportation industry. And don't forget, sign up for STN Expo this summer. Get the latest in trends and technology from experts and peers in the industry. It is the place to be this summer, stnexpo.com. Lock in that early bird rate in Reno for $100 off your registration. Can't wait to see you out there. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to Pods Nation. We'll see you next week. We love you.